All right, grown-ups, it's just our time. I love the babies, but to help you, I gotta speak my mind. This segment's here to help you grow with book reviews, lessons, and things you'll be glad to know. If your little one's restless or looking to play, send them to my other playlist. The read-alouds there will brighten their day. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Teacher Lady Show. Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of the Teacher Lady Speaks. I'm Miss Erica, the Teacher Lady, your fairy godparent when it comes to sharing joyful stories and growing young minds. Now, every single week on the Teacher Lady Show, we have a new topic. And this week's topic is all about hygiene and self-care. How are we raising babies that take pride in themselves, how they smell, and even how they look, because they all tie hand in hand, okay? And of course, we're using picture books to be able to do so. So let's run it back. On Monday, we had 2 episodes of the Teacher Lady Reads, an interactive read aloud, featuring the books The Good Egg and Pig the Stinker. On Wednesday, we had 2 behind the book reviews where I let you know how to utilize these books as a resource to raise children that's not so funky. And then today on Friday, we are wrapping it all up with this episode of the Teacher Lady Speaks, a crash course in how to raise children that are more invested in their own hygiene and self-care. You ready? Let's grow. Defining this topic for a young child. So hygiene are all these simple things that we do to make sure that our body is in the best condition as possible, okay? And I would ask them, I would go back and forth, like brushing your teeth is part of your hygiene. What else? And then they might say taking a bath. And then I might say washing your hands. And then just go back and forth to have this simple conversation around, well, hygiene, because if a child doesn't understand what hygiene is, how are they supposed to have good hygiene and they don't even know what it is? So when you're talking about defining hygiene with a child, point out the things that they're doing to keep their hygiene up and point out the reasons. Recently, I gave the task of washing my daughter's face over to her with the soap and the towelette and her shower and her bath. And I gave that task over. She's now 7 years old. I feel like it's something she can do. That washing her face was a whole explanation multiple times, okay, about why you wash your face separate from the rest of your body. Her face is more sensitive than the rest of her body. The soap that she uses on her face is not the same soap she needs to use on the rest of her body. That list continues, but it is a repeated willingness to answer the questions around personal hygiene and why and how we're taking care of our bodies. So you have to have an openness when it comes to your children. But I'm getting ahead of myself into best practices. Every single week, we compare 2 states to figure out what it is that your child might be learning in the classroom. So we compare the curriculum from the state of California as well as the state of Texas. Let's jump into it. In the state of California, underneath the California Health Education Standards for grade 1, children are expected to identify habits that keep the body healthy, including proper hygiene, nutrition, and rest. Going on to the 2nd grade, they should be able to describe ways to prevent the spread of germs with explicit mention of hand washing, bathing, and covering coughs. And then with 3rd grade on up, there is a focus that expands to emotional self-care, stress management, and decision making about health. Okay. So I would say those first pre-K up to 3rd grade definitely touch on basic hygiene practices, not as in depth as I hope to get in this show and some practices that I hope to take with you. But there is an overall, right? There's a general idea around basic hygiene within California state standards. Let's move on to the state of Texas. Within Texas health education practices, their curriculum states that kindergartners should be able to name personal hygiene habits that help keep the body clean. In grade 1, they should be able to describe the importance of personal hygiene, as well as explain why it is important to rest and exercise. Moving on up to grade 2, They should be able to demonstrate proper brushing and bathing techniques, identify emotions and ways to manage them appropriately, and explain how healthy behaviors impact personal wellness, as well as describe how personal habits can affect relationships with others. So both California and Texas touch on curriculum around hygiene and self-care. Now, for me, the biggest problem is that it's not the practice of doing it. Okay, so in the classroom, we are not teaching your child how to properly wipe and clean themselves. We are not teaching them to clean their neck and behind their ears when they take a bath. We are not teaching them how to floss. So all of these standards are general things that we want the child to know, but the practice is not actually happening in the classroom. It has to happen at home. And that's where a lot of these best practices that I'll get into today come into practice. All right, let's hop into some resources to help you raise a child that is more invested in their own hygiene. The first is Colgate Bright Smiles, Bright Futures. And this is a free K-3 curriculum kit focused on dental hygiene, complete with lesson plans, take-home resources, and activities. So this is great for both the classroom and homeschooling. Now, a lot of these things you're going to have to combine. So you get the lesson and then you do the lesson. It is cool to draw pictures of teeth and to start to understand on paper how those teeth work and how to brush them and how to floss them. And then we need to go brush them and we need to go floss them. Okay, so a lot of these resources are to get you and your child going so that you can go and do the thing. Then next, y'all know I'm going to drop a Sesame Street or a PBS Kids most of these episodes. The next is Sesame Street and Communities. They have a Healthy Body series, which I think is really important. This is going to offer videos, games, and family guides on topics like bath time, germs, brushing teeth, and sleeping. This is perfect for toddlers and early learners. So again, some ways to get the child invested and excited around hygiene. The next resource is called Mind Yeti. Mind Yeti offers mindfulness and emotional regulation audio sessions designed for kids. So you can think of this kind of like a podcast. This is going to help kids build emotional hygiene and calm down routines. Okay. So part of this week, we're talking a lot about self-care as well as hygiene. And that resource is going to help with the self-care part of it. Although I would argue that all of this is self-care. All right. The next is kidshealth.org. They have an archive on their website on hygiene topics. This is a simple medically reviewed articles written for children, parents, and educators. This includes hygiene guides, animated videos, and age-specific content. So I like this one again because it is geared towards children. And the last resource I'm going to share, and of course, if you want or need more, be sure to subscribe to my newsletter. The next one is your local dentist and your local doctor's office. If your child does not have health care, there are usually clinics that are around that are free or a sliding scale to where your child can get seen. Some of these hygiene practices are going to be beyond what you can do in your home. So taking your child to the dentist, taking them to the doctors when needed, normalizing getting them checkups, and just normalizing them becoming familiar with how their healthcare works is essential for raising a child who is invested in their own hygiene and their own self-care. Best practices. There are so many best practices when it comes to hygiene and when it comes to self-care. The first best practice is to do the thing. Okay. So when I think of hygiene, it is every aspect that keeps your body safe. When you get in the tub, there is no part of you that should not be touching water, with the exception of, if you're a Black girl, or maybe I'm not sure how other ethnicities their hair works. We tend to have a schedule for our hair because that's a whole thing that also has to do with hygiene and self-care and looking and feeling good. But from your ears need to be cleaned. There is a ring around your ear. All of this. Let me tell you something. Every part about a child collects dirt. It's really something special. Every single piece of them has a bunch of dirt. They got dirt underneath their nails. They got dirt. The other side of your knee is dirt there. every single piece. And so when you are just getting into the practice of bathing your child, becoming familiar with the anatomy of their body is important. Cleaning their entire body is important. From you bathing them to them bathing themselves, you're going to have to teach them how to do so. There is a period in this when it comes to best practices. It doesn't go from you bathing your child to them bathing themselves. That's not how that works. There should be a few months of you all doing this together. Okay? When you put them in the tub and they're there and you're directing, and that direction should be clear and it should be intentional. Now, here's the thing about it. I've had one-on-one conversations with parents who say, I don't know how to bathe myself. I just found out I was supposed to clean my neck, or I just found out this about myself. So I'm going to give a little bit of insight on how to properly take care of your body or your child's body. I am not a doctor. I am a special education teacher with a whole lot of experience around children and smells and all of those things. If you need a medical professional, go seek a medical professional. But I will let you know how I have a child who usually comes home not smelling if we follow these things. So this is going to be pretty detailed, and don't feel uncomfortable. Everybody gets funky. It's just my goal to give you information on how to help. All right, here it goes. So when you run the bath water, you can put bubble bath, that's fine. But when it comes to washing a child or yourself, I tend to use 2 different soaps. There is an antibacterial soap, which that can be Dial or any other antibacterial soap. And the goal of that soap is to get that layer of grime off. They've been sweating. They've been fighting. They've been jumping off of stuff. They've been touching everything. Kids touch everything. They touch stuff that it's like you look at it and why would you think you should touch that, right? They are the ultimate explorers. And so that initial wash of putting the rag into the water, getting the soap on, and cleaning from in between the fingers, on, up, around the neck, down the body, behind them kneecaps, onto the toes. That initial cleaning is to just get the first layer of rust off that baby. Okay, that's just off the gate. Then you're going to go back. You're going to go back with a body wash this time, because who don't like smelling like fruits and berries? Okay. Now, if you got a dermatology issue or you hyperallergenic or something like that, then don't do this step. But I like to go back with something that smells good, because the antibacterial soap, it just smells like soap. It don't really have a little twang to it. Then I go back a second time once we've rinsed all that grime off with the new soap, and then we do the same process, right? We clean all the same areas. We've rinsed it off, and now we're cleaning again. There's 2 washes, really 3, because the third step before that child gets out of that bath is I turn on the shower, and now everything we've just scrubbed has to thoroughly come off. If you think about it, when you're sitting in a bathtub, you are sitting in a tub full of dirt. Okay, it is the dirt from your body, but it's still dirt. So if you get out of that tub and you dry off and you pat dry, how clean are you? Because you have not rinsed all of that off. So once we've done the 2 scrub downs, you get the shower head. Now, I like a removable shower head. If you can get one, I would definitely say invest in it. It makes life a lot easier. You're now going to rinse off all of those parts. Okay, all of it has to be rinsed out. Period. That's it. You have to clean it out, because if you don't clean it out, you end up with odor. And a lot of people will take a bath or a shower every day and still have an issue with smell. And the reason why is because you are not taking enough time or thoroughly cleaning every part of your body. Think about it. The larger you are, the more areas on your body you have in terms of roles. So if you are not digging in and getting that dirt out every single day, you will have smells just coming from that one section of your body, wondering why it is you're having an issue with odor. So when that child is completely rinsed off and their body is clean, it is now time to wash their face. The face washing and the body washing are two different washing processes. The face washing, you do want to get a face cleanser that is lower in like chemicals and all of that stuff, something simple. Now, these videos ain't sponsored. I do them out of love. So I'm not endorsing nobody, but you want to get one with less ingredients, especially if it's a child. And then you want a clean towelette. Now, I love towelettes because with washing towels, body towels, if you use them on your face, you still have all the grime from the washer. You still have maybe some buildup soap. And because our face, in my family, our face is very sensitive, okay? The clean individual towelettes work best. And so we get a towelette, put a little soap on there, water, and then we get to scrubbing. That's when you get to scrubbing. You're going to scrub all around your face, under that neck, around them ears. You getting all of that. And then you're rinsing that water off of your face. Okay. So at this point, you've cleaned your whole body twice, completely rinsing it off both times. You've cleaned your face. You've cleaned between all the crevices. And now you get out. And now it's time for you to moisturize, because dry skin also causes issues when it comes to hygiene. And so I have found it best to leave a little bit of water when you're rubbing in your lotion, especially if you're using a thicker lotion, because by the time it dries, you just feel a bit better in your skin. So you're going to dry off. That child is going to use deodorant if they're age appropriate for it, which I think with mine, I started at like 4. I don't do smells. I don't do well with smells. I'm a very empathetic person, so it's not like I walk past a person like that's not my energy at all. But just in general, if I can control it, if we have access to soap and water, there is no need for me to smell you. Deodorant, and then after deodorant, now you got lotion on, you got deodorant on, it's time to brush your teeth. One of the best practices when it comes to hygiene is that you have to take more time. We rush everything. Everything got to be done 30 minutes ago, an hour ago. We're constantly behind. And as a result, we are not properly cleaning and taking care of ourselves. All of these steps take time. Think about what you've just done in that bathtub. Okay. And we still not done yet. So now you've done your face. Now there is a separate face lotion from your body lotion, but you want to find something that's going to moisturize your face. So you've lotioned your body, you've lotioned your face. It's time to hit your teeth. Teeth have been the hardest part for me in terms of hygiene. I'm just going to be extremely vulnerable. I came out of the foster care system, and what I have noticed in our society as a whole is that we put more emphasis on our body than we do our teeth. We don't really teach good hygiene at all. Like even when we were talking about the state curriculum practices, it was like kids should be able to bathe, but nobody is actually teaching them how to bathe, right? So my problem was teeth. And I was maybe like 11 years old. And I remember, because I was super, super young, 11, 12 years old, and Western Dental decided to put fillings on all my teeth. And I did not need them. Looking back at old x-rays, thinking about that time, I did not need them. But they put this mercury filling in all of my teeth. And it was this year that I got all of this old mercury metal stuff out of my teeth and got my teeth properly cared for. No, I'm cavity free. I'm issue free. I ain't got no buildup. I ain't got no tartar. I ain't got none of that. And it took a long time to get there. It took a long time. So as I am sharing these hygiene best practices, it is in no way to shame anybody, because we all have a journey. Now, what I have learned now in terms of teeth is that there is a certain way to floss. I have found that the string floss is best, and that when you're pushing down to get the stuff out of your teeth, you're essentially going on both sides of the gum. And then you're going to change the floss over some, because you don't want to use the same. Let's say you just got some spinach out of one tooth, then you take that same piece of the floss that had that spinach and you go put it into the next tooth. No, you want to scoot over some and then build down with the next one. I hate flossing. Hate it. do not like it, probably will never like it, but I understand the value in it, which is another important thing when it comes to hygiene, is understanding why it is we're doing the things that we're doing. Okay. So your baby is now clean and they're lotioned, and it's time to floss. You're going to floss their teeth. You're going to brush their teeth in a circular motion with patience. You're going to finish off with mouthwash. And make sure when you're brushing their teeth, you brush that tongue. And now they are done in terms of just their day. This is every day. Okay, this is the night routine for a baby. All right. Now they're dressed. They need to go clean that tub out, and they are good to go for that night. Now, if you have a child that excessively sweats overnight, you're probably going to have to hit them twice. They might need a bath at night to get off that day's hard work. And then they might need a shower in the morning. Okay, because that 9 hours of sleeping, if you do sweat turns into dirt. It is what it is. That now has to be washed out. Now in the morning, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to wash your body. You're going to dry your body. You're going to lotion your body. You're going to brush your teeth. You're going to clean your face. Now, I will say that I have 2 different routines when it comes to face cleaning right now in my family for my child. So at night, she'll use the towelette, and I'll run this past her, make sure she okay with the internet and the world knowing this, but I believe she is. At night, you use the towelette and the face soap, but in the morning, you can use just an antibacterial wipe, a face wipe, one of those disposable wipes, to just kind of, knock it off. And then, lotion your face and go on about your day. But how much more you have to do is going to depend on your individual body. If you're a person and your thighs rub together and it causes this friction, put some baby powder. That's an extra step. That list kind of goes on and on and on in terms of figuring out the things that are going to work best for you and work best for your child. Now, I will say that there are children who are completely against all of these things. They don't want to bathe. They don't want to shower. They don't want to brush their teeth. And the most valuable thing that you can do is make sure that they understand that these are not optional. And it's hard when you have children with sensory differences, or you have children who are neurodivergent. Is definitely a challenge, because think about how that water might feel on them, or think about how that towel, it's like nails on a chalkboard for some children. And so there is an empathy and an understanding, but nothing can excuse them still needing to clean themselves. So another best practice is them understanding what happens when you do not take care of yourself. I was really sad, I'll be honest, to see how few books there are on this topic, how few picture books there are on this topic. I know I wrote one. I haven't finished it yet in terms of the illustrations, but it has been written for years because it's extremely important, because children need to understand that some things are not optional, that we have to do them so that we don't get sick, so that we don't make others sick, so that our body can feel as good as it possibly can, so that we're confident. I mean, the self-consciousness a person feels if they know that their breath smells, if they know that their body smells, that affects them. I was in a classroom, I don't know how many years, a very long time, and now in educational leadership, but I was a classroom teacher for a while. And I would have these students and I would do their hair. I would do their hair with their parents' permission. I would comb their hair. And when I tell you, if you have a child in your class who is having behavior issues and their hair is not done and their clothes are extremely dirty, there is something up with their physical appearance. There is a connection between them looking better and feeling good about how they look. Okay, there's a difference, because when they feel good about how they look, they show up differently. My husband would take some of my students to have them go get their hair cut, because it makes my whole week easier. It makes my whole month easier. I notice your attitude has changed. Oh, now you can follow instructions. Now you're willing to participate. There is a difference. And it's the same thing for us as adults. When we step into this world, I know we like to say like, come as you are. But the reality is we live in a superficial society, and we live in a society where what you look like does matter. Regardless of whether or not I like it, it is the truth of the matter. How you present yourself in the world holds extreme value. There is a difference in how I've been treated. My skin color hasn't changed, but just putting on a colorful dress and doing my hair and makeup, there is a difference in my treatment than when I throw on some sweats and I run to the bank. I notice it. I notice it. And even a step further from that, how I feel about myself is the most important thing. Children, it's the same thing. When I comb them babies' hair and they think they cute, because I could think they cute at any stage. You could think they cute at any stage. But how they feel about themselves, even if it did come from societal beauty standards or whatever, how they feel about themselves. When they put that on, when they feel clean, when they look like they feel like $1,000,000, it changes their attitude and it changes their behavior. And that is important. Okay. And so you really want children to be invested in their own self-care as well as hygiene, because you get so much more from it. So once you've dealt with the smells and the body hygiene of it all, next is the outfits. Outfits are a huge deal when it comes to self-expression. So much information. Make sure that your child feels good about how they look. What clothes make them feel best? If it's that polka dots and stripes and shirts and they want to wear a raincoat, is there a place to where that works? Can they look how they want to look going to the park in terms of putting an outfit together intentionally? Okay. So you want to kind of weave those things in, because it truly is a balance. We want our children to feel good about themselves. We want them to have this confidence, this outstanding confidence. We also want to prepare them for the very real world that we live in. My daughter, here we go again, had locks down her back. She had beautiful locks in her head. And she decided she wanted to cut them. What she wanted was curls. And in order for her to get curls, she had to cut the locks, because I was not combing them locks out. And I explained to her, like, you're going to look like your dad. You're going to be bald headed. Like, is that what you want? And I was so scared. I was scared of her being bullied, made fun of. I was scared of people thinking she had, a sickness or should be hospitalized. There was a nervousness in terms of understanding how cruel this world can be. She didn't care. She cut her hair and she loved it. I will insert a picture. She absolutely loved her hair. And so even though for me and, my nervousness in terms of knowing how harsh the world can be, she loved it, and it helped with her confidence. And now that she loves her hair, it helps with being able to manage that hair because she is invested. You have to find ways to get your child invested in their own hygiene and in their own self-care. When to seek help. So I definitely feel like if you have a child with sensory sensitivities, that it is a challenge for them to get in water. It is a challenge for them to get their hair cut. If you have a child who is autistic, if you have a child who has another difference, that challenge can be exhausting for you as a caregiver and exhausting for them, right? Because like the example I gave earlier, for some children, when water touches them, it hurts. They respond physically as if they are in pain because for them, they are in pain. And so when it comes to these unique situations, you want to extend your reach and get help. Connect with other parents who have autistic little ones. How are they going about bathing their child? How are they going about brushing their teeth? What are they doing? Connect with your local doctor. Figure out some techniques and some practices and some tactics. So just becoming aware of what it is that your child needs and how you're able to work around it. They also now have beauticians and barbers specifically for children who are autistic, which I think is really, really beautiful and special, because when it comes to children who are on the spectrum, or when it comes to neurodivergent children, patience is your best friend. You are going to have to be willing to be patient. Okay. And so with that, when it comes to people cutting their hair or doing their hair, they also need to have that same lens and understanding. So if you are constantly having challenges with just basic hygiene, when I say basic hygiene, I mean like brushing teeth, taking a bath, lotion, and all of these things, because of how your child responds, I would definitely seek help. Whether that is a, therapist that specializes on this thing, a doctor, or parents. Other caregivers and other guardians make beautiful resources. And so you want to connect with them, connect with that local PTA, that parent teacher association, find the local meetup group for other caregivers who have children who are in a similar boat, and don't be embarrassed to seek help. If you are so embarrassed to seek help that you don't, you're only harming yourself and your child, because every single one of us have things that we deem embarrassing or hard, or we don't want to talk about. We all have them. We're very human. And if you go to your doctor or you go to your therapist and you say, hey, I haven't bathed my child in a week because I can't get them in the water, and then they shame you for it, you fire them. And then you go find somebody else. If somebody laughs at you or decides to pick fun because you are struggling, because your child is different from their child, because your child cannot do soap, because you're tired of your child picking up that bar of soap and throwing it at you because they cannot manage, you need to find a new group. You need to find new people. There is no shame in learning. Life is a learning process. And so if you are facing some challenges around hygiene because of their sensitivities, you definitely want to seek help. The other is, if you don't know, again, if you don't know best practices when it comes to hygiene, I gave you a mini lesson on how to bathe, but if you have more questions that haven't been answered and you're legitimately unsure, you want to seek help. Well, how do you do this? Well, what deodorant do you use? Well, what's going on with my skin when I use this product? Well, how do I wash my clothes properly? That could be a whole nother 30 minutes right there, me teaching you how I wash my clothes. They all link hand in hand. And when it's time to seek help, it's because you don't have the information. YouTube and social media is both a blessing and a curse. Because while you might have some people who are qualified, who give valid information, you got a lot of people who make stuff up. And you got a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about. And so I say, take the things that you learn online with a grain of salt. Anybody can have credentials. Anybody can say that they're a professional doctor or professional whatever. But it might be a place where you want to start. But overall, go into community. Don't be embarrassed, and go find out the information you need in order to raise a child who has better hygiene practices that they can then take and be independent if their body and their life allows them to be able to do so. Let's keep growing. So as I'm recording this episode, my husband is in the room. And what he said is you want to cut out the part where you talk about potentially bathing a child or trying to wash them down as they're sleeping. Because of how it could come across in terms of sexual abuse. And it's so unfortunate that in this country, we have so many, or in this world, we have so many harsh realities that we have to be mindful of how we say things so that people don't get the wrong idea. By the way, we have an entire week on abuse and consent. No. Don't be so scared of being accused of something or something being misread that you don't properly take care of your child. If your child is wheelchair bound, if they have such a sensitivity to getting into water that the only time you're able to start to wipe them down is when they're sleeping, then clean them while they're sleeping. That is your child. You're not harming them. You're trying to figure out in this very rough situation how to love on them, how to clean them, and how to take care of them. And sometimes with children who have these developmental differences, you have to take standards that most people would not understand. And there is nothing wrong with that. And so if your child sleeping is the only way you can take a bucket and some water to try to get some of the dirt off of them until you figure something else out, then you do that. You absolutely do that. If the only way that they'll take their medicine is if you mix it into cereal, then that's where their medicine goes. You have to find creative ways to help your child. Nobody knows what it feels like to raise your autistic child, even if they have an autistic child. Nobody understands what it means to raise and to clean and to bathe a child who can't physically move at all. So you do the things that you need to do. And you don't let nobody make you feel bad about it. And mentally speaking, your head likely would never go nowhere near abusing your child, which is why you're watching this episode. People who watch the Teacher Lady Speaks to get more information to help their children are not in the market of abusing their children. They are people who are tired, who are upset, who are overwhelmed, and who are trying to figure out, well, what do I do? I know I'm supposed to bathe my baby, but every time I put them in a bathtub, we fighting. So what do I do? These are things that I've heard of. I've heard of parents who have cleaned their child down when they're laying down or when they're resting or what have you. Because of that challenge, I've heard of parents going to special barbershops or special beauticians to get their hair done because most people will never understand. So you create the community that will understand you and you make sure that you take care of your baby as best as possible. Let's keep growing. Okay, common questions. My child only wants to look what I think is a mess. What do I do? We talked about this briefly earlier. I would pick a place to where they can put their outfit together so that they have some form of agency. If you only give your child what it is that they can wear and they can never go outside of that box, as they get older, they will still be looking for answers on what to do and what to wear. So instead, find places that it's okay for them to look a mess. Find places that it's okay for them to have the stripes and the polka dots and the yellow and the orange. Take them to that place and then take them home and then, put on some regular pajamas. But find pockets, right? Is that grocery store run? Is it okay for them to put their outfit together? Or that park? Is it okay for them to put their outfit together? Find ways to which they can have that agency. Can you play dress up in the house to where it does not feel like all rules all the time? How do I make hygiene fun? I'm not convinced that it has to be. There are things in our life that are fun and there are things that in our life that are not. Some ways to make it funner, if you wanted to go bath time, is they definitely have like bubble bombs that you can put in there. There's crayons now you can color on the side of the tub. But I'm actually not a fan of all of that. And the reason being is at this point, I am trying to teach you how to teach your child how to properly clean themselves. And if you got a bunch of ducks floating around and color bubbles flying everywhere, then it truly takes away from the lesson we want our children to get. And so, this might be done in stages. It might be that the first stage of their bath time is them playing around with the bubbles and the toys. And then the second stage is, okay, now it's time to actually clean off. But overall, there's a million things you can put in the bathtub to make it brighter. If you wanted to, I don't think it's necessary. In terms of brushing the teeth, I tend to do, or I did, at least when my child was younger, but I would sing a song, 1 little, 2 little, 3 little monkeys. And I would sing a song so that she's not focused on the fact that I'm brushing her teeth. And this also works well with other children as well, is to sing or have music playing or a timer so that they know when it'll be over. One way to reduce anxiety when it comes to children and their hygiene is to let them know that it will come to an end. So if they do hate taking a bath or brushing their teeth, having a visual timer so that they understand when we're going to do it and when it's going to be over will also be extremely helpful. The last common question around hygiene is going to be, how do I teach my child how to properly clean themselves? There is actually a video that I thought was genius, and I have been using it as a resource ever since. And in the video, she uses the two balloons as almost like a diagram or a model, where the two balloons represent a booty, and she is showing children how to clean themselves. That is very helpful. Okay. So using something else, using a diagram, using something you both can look at to start to practice how to properly clean yourself when you use the bathroom is super important. Along those same lines, washing hands. All the children that I've worked with and seen, I can count on one hand how many properly wash their hands. Most children do not properly wash most adults don't properly wash their hands either. So teaching them the process, why you're washing hands that way, you can pretty much do that in the bathroom with them. But when it comes to the actual bathroom, using some sort of model or diagram might be helpful. Wow. I want to thank you for being with me today. This topic is a major one when it comes to hygiene, when it comes to taking care of our bodies. We always feel a little weird talking about it, but it is so valuable and important. And I hope that you have learned something from this topic this week. So thank you. Thank you for learning with me. Thank you for growing with me. Please drop a comment if there's something you need me to know. Thank you for being part of this book-loving community. I also want to let you know that I am an author and an illustrator with 9 diverse books, which encourage the Empathy Library. The Empathy Library is a straightforward, pay-it-forward initiative where we get books to children in need by way of your generosity. So if you're able to go onto the website to check that out and donate, please do. If you are a community leader and you need books for community, there's also a form on the website that you can fill out. Until next time, remember to enjoy the moment or go be a joy in the moment. Bye.